in some culture.
Yeah, I don't know if those cultures are doing the right thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
There's cultures that fuck their kids too. You know, like
True.
the Papua New Guinea, the horrible shit, the semen warriors. You know that story. Like you can't ever say like a culture does it must be good.
Yeah.
Like who the hell knows?
Well, I'm just saying if there's kids, because I would think if you told me,
I think it's you can become a good person without it.
right. You think meditation is key. If you're not you think you have to be meditating.
You know, I think everybody needs a different thing. And unfortunately, because I think it would be great if there was like one size fits all. Like, hey, take mushrooms, you'll be a better person. I don't think that's real. Just like I don't think there's one diet fit all, one exercise program fit all, one interests and hobbies category that fits all. It doesn't work. Like people, we vary so fucking much, man.
Right.
We're the same thing, but we vary so much. There's people that do things every day that you and I couldn't imagine doing once. And
Yeah.
they do it every day with glee. And we're terrified of it, or we find it boring, or we just completely uninterested. And other people, it's their whole life.
You think you have to just accept who you are and not resist who you are.
You got to find who you are, cultivate who you are, and you can, in some ways, you can create who you are in that you can choose to be better at things, choose to be a better person, choose to be a better comedian, choose to be a better athlete. You can choose to be better at things, and you literally change who you are. Like whoever Michael Jordan was before he played basketball is not the same guy that became Michael Jordan, the Hall of Famer, who's one of the greatest athletes of all time. That guy became something. He made himself, turned himself through will and effort and thought and hard work, changed who he is.
Yeah, I read this. I feel like it's weird. Like the last 6 months for me, I've almost been like, do I have like cancer or something like that? Like I have something that I don't even know about yet, where I'm going to die, and these are like the last few years of my life, because I was just like something just shifted in me. Because I have 2 kids now, but when I had my first kid, you would think it'd be extremely impactful, and it was. But now, like this, I've been trying to read so much about not even so much history. I do love history, but I've been trying to read other stuff. Like I just read this book, The 5 Things You Must Know Before You Die by John Izzo. And he interviewed all people on their deathbed from all different walks of life, all different cultures, creeds, all different levels of intelligence. But all of them had to be over 75 and be at end-of-life care. So they all but cognitively aware. And they all were saying the same things in different languages about not making money your God at all. That the guy on his deathbed, he was like, I wish I was surrounded by my family instead of my BMWs. That's what I see out my window. I don't care about them. I wish my family was here. And they all said the same thing. It's not about, all these people said, it's not about failing. Everyone's going to fail. All the people who are angry at the end of their life never took a chance to fail. They never faced the failure. They just said, I'm not going to do it. And they lived their life comfortably. And now they're on their deathbed being like, oh, I would give anything back to do it. Where the people who took all these chances and failed, a lot of them people were on their deathbeds almost penniless, but joyous, so happy because they took so many opportunities and they failed at all of them. Some people failed at like 90% of what they tried. And they were so happy because at least they took the chance to do it. And I was like, wow, like there's a lot of things that I've done in my life. There's a lot of things I have tried, like comedy and getting a doctorate degree and all that stuff. I was like, oh, wow, I did that. But then there's a lot of things I haven't, because I was just, and I'm like, man, like listening to these people, it's like, just try everything safely, try everything that you can. And I wasn't like that. Like 6 months ago, I was very like, I'm just going to do comedy. That's what I want to do. I'm in the comedy zone. I do this. And now I'm like into real estate. Now I'm into, trying to get into, even though I'm about to be 38, I'm like, I can start MMA now. I've always wanted to. It's always been a thing in me. Like, how come you don't know how to defend yourself? I'm starting to try to do that. I'm starting to try to, get out here and like, learn more about psychedelics. And I feel it. Like, I almost feel like I can't stop myself from doing psychedelics. Like, it's going to happen. Like, where 6 months ago, I'd be like, I'm terrified. What if my heart stops? And now I'm like, well, if I take a psychedelic and my heart stops, then I'll just continue on with whatever the next part of my existence might be.
The thing is, nobody could tell you what's going to happen. That's why it's so weird. but it's probably a part of why humans became humans.
Right.
I mean, there's a guy named Terence McKenna who had a theory about the evolution of man, and it involved mushrooms. They called it the stoned ape theory.
Yeah.
And the stoned ape theory is about how there's a giant leap in human brain size. It's like one of the most confusing things in the entire fossil record, because the human brain size, I think it's more than doubles over a period of 2 million years, and they have no idea why. They don't know why. They have guesses. Cooked food. Some of them they think it might be throwing things. They figured out how to throw things, and that created weapons and weapon making.
Why? Because you could safely be away from an animal, something like that.
Yeah, so you can hunt things that you weren't exactly close to. But it doesn't make sense that would make your brain grow that fast. The thing that McKenna said was that if you look at the timeline of when humans, their brains grew, it's at the same time where the rainforests were receding into grasslands.
Okay.
And so when the rainforests were receding into grasslands, there was a lot of ungulates, like cow-type creatures, and a lot of the primates came down from the trees. And they would flip over cow patties and find like beetles and bugs and worms and shit to eat. Mm-hmm. And on the top of cow patties were often mushrooms. And he thinks it's very reasonable to assume they would have experimented with those mushrooms to see if they're edible. And one of the things you find when you do eat psilocybin, which is very common in cow shit, psilocybin in low doses increases visual acuity, which means you can see things better, which would make you a better hunter. And they've proven this with there was a guy, I forget the guy's name, but he was a psychologist and he did these studies on psilocybin and edge detection, meaning that like if you took 100 random people and gave 50 of them psilocybin and 50 of them nothing, the ones that took the psilocybin could detect if you had two parallel lines, if the line moved off the parallel, the ones who were on psilocybin could detect it quicker. So it changes the way you see things. It makes you horny in low doses. It brings about a sense of community and creativity, and it might even encourage the creation of language. And his brother Dennis explained that, but I'm not gonna butcher that. But he actually explained it on my podcast why the way psilocybin interacts with human neurochemistry would encourage the creation of language. So if that's the case, that's these primates experimenting with mushrooms accelerated our development far beyond what it would have been if we hadn't done that.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like there's almost no way that those types of drugs weren't a huge impact in our development. I also think distractions were a lot lower, probably, back then. And like, when you like Great Pyramid stuff, when I listen to all these great thinkers talk about it, I'm like, but also like maybe feats like that would be impossible now because of distractions and unions and this and that. But back then, it's like if I told you need to get that brick in that right place or you're going to get whipped or killed, you would have a higher chance of doing it.
Yeah, you just get whipped or killed. This is not about.
You think that's
I think it's about. I don't think it was about like forcing people to do it as much as it is about skilled labor. They just have recently decided, I think it was within the last couple of decades, that those people that worked in the pyramids were probably well paid. And they found, because